Hello and welcome to another Mordian Mondays. This is episode 104 and I am aware that it is not Monday. Don't worry, you're not going mad. The calendar hasn't changed. The days of the week haven't been renamed. I'm just releasing the video a day late. That's it. No excuses or anything. That's just what the reality of the situation is. So let's crack on with today's video. Just dive straight into it. Make up for some lost time. And you might be thinking, but Mordian Glory, these aren't Mordians that you're presenting to me. How could it be a Mordian Monday if it's not on a Monday and there's no Mordians involved? Well, you know what? That life is just chaos. Chaos is a pit, a ladder, whatever you want to call it, and we're just going to have to just crack on with it, basically. But what have I been working on this week? Well, I have been making serious inroads into Poland. I mean into my bolt action German army, and I have been painting up loads and loads of stuff, and I've got the colour scheme nailed down, and I've just been having an absolutely great time doing all things but action. I've played a couple of games. I've played a 500-point game. I've played a 1,000-point game. Played another 1,000-point game. Played 3 games. And I have also been painting loads and loads of stuff. I've just been I'm not even just marinating in bot action. I am fully swimming underwater with my eyes open and scuba diving. I'm scuba diving. Everything is clear and I'm just swimming through this lovely, warm, bolt action-y sort of just ocean, soup, whatever you want to call it. I'm just having a great time. And I've just been really enjoying the change of pace from doing things a bit 40k and whatnot. And I've been feeling a little bit down on 40k. I think it's just been the fact that maybe I hit it slightly too hard, burned out slightly by the end of last year, and, bolt actions come along and it's something fresh and new and exciting and whatnot. So I've just been really enjoying it, and I was, concerned a little bit, this is a 40k channel, should I really be doing bolt action stuff, blah, blah. But I've just decided, you know what, I'm just going to do content that I enjoy, and right now I'm enjoying some bolt action stuff, so I figured let's just do, bolt action, let's do a bolt action video a week, one a week kind of thing, maybe, sort of thing, and then we'll always be keeping the 40 content, flowing. That's always going to be going, isn't it? Like 40k is just like good old staples, always something going on in the world of 40k that you can do a video on. So anyway, I know I've been all over the place already. It's been a crazy chaotic video already, but that is Mordian Mondays. It's always crazy, it's always chaotic, it's always rambling. Who knows what the heck I'm on about? But I have been painting lots of bolt action this week, and that's where we will start. That's where we'll crack on with today's video. And what I have been working on is my winter Germans. So I just have been, like I said, really enjoying putting the bolt action kits together. Last week I built everything. This week I've started doing lots of painting. And so what I got done this week was first thing that I did was I painted my Opel Blitz truck. That's my just generic troop transport truck thing. And let me just tell you, as someone who's been sort of thinking, 40k could do is, the Guard could do some basic truck transports. It's really nice that I can now actually use basic truck transports. I mean, not everything's going to be an APC or an IFV or anything like that. Sometimes you're just going to go to battle in a truck, or sometimes you're just going to be being transported around in a truck. So it's really nice to just paint this vehicle. And the colour scheme that I've gone for is really, really simple. It probably uses about half, maybe even a third of the colours that my Mordians use. It's a really simple colour scheme. And I would argue, I wouldn't even argue, I would admit, I would confess that these are not my best painted models. That I am not putting my most effort into these boys. I am getting these guys tabletop ready. The whole point of this colour scheme, before we go any further, is that this is tabletop ready. And it's all about being able to put models out quickly. The Mordian 50th Rifles is a passion project. It is a labour of love. If it takes me 2 weeks to do 10 guys or 5 guys or 1 character, it doesn't matter to me, because it's the best painting that I can do in the free time that I have available. My Germans are not like that. My Germans are, I don't like playing with unpainted models. Let's get them tabletop ready so they look decent-ish on a battle report. They look decent-ish on photos. They look good, when they're moving around the battle. And they look fine for me using them. And I'm not too worried about chucking them in a case or transporting them in a tub or anything like that. I'm just not worried about that, because they're just nice tabletop models. And that's what I've gone for with these bozos. So the colour scheme is pretty simple. I've just used, for anyone who's like into 40k, but getting a bit burned out like I was and is looking to get into bolt action, you don't need to go out and buy a whole new set of paints. Every bolt action model that I've ever painted, I've basically used Citadel paints. Okay, so for example, with these guys, I was like, you know what? I know that it's a historical game and that there obviously is like specific color schemes you can do for certain regiments within certain factions and blah blah blah. But I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to paint this as like a generic, almost like Hollywood style German army. And you know what? The Germans were grey. In all the films, the Germans wear grey uniforms. That's their thing. That's the distinguishing thing that they wear. So you know what? I'm going to have grey Germans. And then I can use them as just anything. It's just a generic German army. It's not a specific historical unit or anything like that. It's just a generic German army. So that's what I did. So I was like, you know what? First colour we need is grey. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to go for a dark grey colour. I want my Germans to be gritty. To be a bit, we're thinking Stalingrad feel. That's the vibe I'm kind of going with my Germans. It's grim, it's dark, it's grim dark, but it's not 40k, it's bot action. And the reason I did that is because with my other bot action army, my Japanese, I went for quite bright, vibrant colours. I went for a really light tan. I went for a nice light green. I went for a light colour on like the rifles. I did, did the silver. And I did a really bright silver. I wanted my Japanese to be a bright, vibrant, colourful force, and I got that sort of satisfaction and that paint and scratched that sort of painting itch with that army. And with this army, I was like, dirty, grim, grimy, Stalingrad, everyone's having a bad time, it's cold, the supplies aren't getting through, the Luftwaffe isn't delivering the tonnage that they said they would, no one's having a great time. That's the sort of vibe I went with this army. So that's why I went for a dark grey and I washed it in Nuln oil. That was what I wanted to get out of this army. And then I was like, you know what? Rather than having brown leather, because if you think about the armies that I do, if you watch the channel, my Mordians have got brown leather webbing, my Japanese have got brown leather webbing, my Genestealer had brown leather webbing, my Black Templars, their pouches are brown leather. I was like, you know what? Let's mix it up. Black leather. I very rarely paint black leather because I often do boots black and then I want the webbing to be a different colour. But I thought, you know what? Let's have, World War II uniforms weren't bright and colourful, and they were often essentially all the same colour from head to toe, because that's, trying to be, drab uniform, semi-camouflage, that kind of thing. And I was like, you know what, let's sort of lean into that a little bit. I don't want everything to be grey from top to bottom, but let's lean into that a little bit. So I was like, black boots, black webbing, dark colours. On any of the pouches that I didn't do in black, I did in, amazingly, I couldn't find, this is just like a happy accident. Sometimes it just happens when you're painting. I was going to use Castellan Green for the other pouches. And I went to my Castellan Green and it was a classic Games Workshop paint problem. Open it up, it's all dry and shit. Right, I said, can't use that, it's unsalvageable. So I looked around and at the bottom of my painting, I've got like a basket where I keep my paints in. In the bottom, tucked away, was a pot of wire flesh. For when I was, from when I occasionally get the urge to paint some orcs up, I just pull out this wire flesh. And it always, I don't know, maybe it's just one of the lucky ones, but it always seems to be alright, this wire flesh. Maybe because it doesn't get used so much, it doesn't get so much air in it. I don't know. I'm not a paint psychiatrist. All I'm going to say is that this wire flesh never lets me down. And I pulled this wire flesh, I was like, I wonder if this will work. If I wash this in non-oil, if this will look like dark green German ammo pouches and stuff. And wouldn't you know, it worked. So all of the webbing that comes on the model, so that's the stuff around the front, the straps over the shoulders and down the back, I did all that in just good old fashioned Abaddon black. And then I did the ammo pouches and stuff around the back and like your generic sort of, I don't want to call it like set pouches, whatever you want to call them, but your generic sort of pouches, bigger pouches round the back, like your water bottle pouches and stuff like that. I did those in this green, in wire flesh. And then I made sure that it wasn't like just, a block of green strapped to the people's back. So I do like one pouch in black, one pouch in green, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I did. And then any of the gas mask tubes, I always remember the gas mask holders, which are like the little green sort of hard tubes that they have on the back. I always remember those being in like a darker green. So I painted those in what used to be called Dark Angels green. I think it's called Caliban green now. you know, it's more copyright protected, I suppose, if you call it Caliban green. I don't know. But I painted that. So actually, if you look at the webbing, it's a bit subtle, but you've got black, 2 shades of green, and then any of the entrenching tools have got a brown handle. So actually, and it just gives you just enough colour variety so it doesn't look like just a grey model from top to bottom. It looks like you've actually put some painting into it. Likewise with the helmets, I know a lot of the time the helmets were like, you know, a grey colour, but again, I'm not a big fan of. I did this with my Japanese. I know Japanese helmets were tended to be, they had tan helmets to go with their tan uniforms, and I painted my Japanese helmets green and went with a tan uniform because I wanted that differentiation, that variety in the model. I know it makes them look a bit Soviet, doesn't matter, they're Japanese. With the Germans, again, I didn't want it to be all the one colour, but I obviously wanted it to be, you know, not a bright coloured helmet where it wasn't appropriate. So I just did a bad and black and then dry brushed some silver over it. I think I actually used an army painter silver because again my Games Workshop one had gone out of the window. So I think I used the plate mail for army silver, but you could use Ironbreaker. And that's basically what I painted the Germans. And I used all of those colours. On the Panzer IV as well. So once I got it, so I painted, and on the Opel Blitztruck, all of these colours, basically once I got it nailed down on the Opel Blitz and on the Test Rifleman, that was kind of it. I knew where I was going then, and then it was like, you know, paint my Panzer IV up, got the Opel Blitz done, did the Test Rifleman. I originally tried to do the Test Rifleman in Astro Granite, and again, it was just too much grey from top to bottom. So I was like, you know what? I've got some flock already, but it's really, really light. I don't want to use that. I've already used that on my Japanese. It wouldn't be appropriate on my Germans. I want a darker green, really dark green flock to stick with that gringy, gritty look. So I went for a really dark green flock. And it makes the models pop a little bit. I have had a slight issue though, but it's not the end of the world. A slight issue. Where you see it on these pictures now is when I've just done the one layer of PVA and put the flock, you know, put the model into the flock. But I haven't done the second layer of PVA to lock it in. When I do the second layer of PVA, it really darkens down that flock. So it looks like really, really dark green. And I actually prefer the colour of it before it has the extra layer of PVA done. But the thing is, if you don't put that extra layer of PVA on, you pick a model up and this cloud of flock just emanates from it. The moment you drop it, half the base just falls off. You know, it's with some of my Japanese models, they're starting to become a bit bare because I didn't seal it with an extra layer of PVA. So whilst I'm trying to keep this army quick and rapid and just, you know, crank them out as many as possible, I think what I am going to have to do is once, because when you do that extra layer of PVA, it sets rock hard, which is really, really good. I think I might have to go over the bases, as though I'm trying to keep it a really quick project. I might have to dry brush the bases slightly just to take them, bring them up a bit lighter, because it's almost blacky green. You know, it's really, really, really dark green, and especially in some lighting, it just looks almost like a black base. It looks really, really dark. So got to fix that, but I'll do all of them at the end. I literally just do 50 bases at the end. It'll take me like 30 seconds per base. I'll just be like, poof, 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 poof. Does that look all right? Yeah, next, poof, 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 next, yeah, exactly. So that's where we're up to, guys. Now, in terms of what I've painted, this week, going into specifics, I painted this is for those people who follow bot action. And for those of you that want a little bit more detail, because I know I've been keeping it hobby focused and a bit light. You know, I painted a tank, I painted a truck, I painted some infantry. I'm going to go into the details now of what I painted and what's my thoughts behind those units currently. So I painted up my Opel Blitz truck, and I just kept it as basic as possible. I didn't give it a machine gun. You can give it a machine gun, and there is arguments to be made that giving your, Opel Blitz trucks machine guns is great. It's 15 points, and it's a German machine gun, so you get that extra shot because you get the Hitler's Buzzsaw special rule. But My kind of thinking behind using my trucks is I want them to be cheap as possible. They have one job, and that's to get my unit as fast as possible to where it needs to go. And giving it a machine gun, whilst it might only seem like 15 points, if you kind of translate that from bolt action points to 40k points for a moment, that's like 30 points. And it would be the equivalent of being like, do you want to strap a heavy bolter to your vehicle for 30 points? And you wouldn't do it, not in 40k. And so I wouldn't want to do that in bolt action. And so I feel it's quite, and the truck is like 40 points, maybe 45 points. So if you put a machine gun on it, you're actually increasing its cost by 33%. And I would rather not do that. I would actually rather take save the points, take the truck as like veteran, so that it's when you need to call it in from reserve, it's more likely to come in from reserve, and it's just cheaper. And then if it ends up getting taken out because of the transport rules in bolt action, if it ends up getting taken out by the enemy because it gets isolated, you're not worried about it. You're not relying on it. You're not factoring it in. There's plenty of places in the German army where you can take a machine gun. In my opinion, keep your trucks for transporting and keep your machine guns for units that want to be doing damage. I could be wrong. Anyone out there that plays bolt action, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. That's just my personal opinion. Now, that's the truck. That's the thinking behind it. Cheap, cheerful, fast transportation. That's what we want from that bad boy. Moving on to the more exciting choice, let's take a look at that Panzer IV. So, you get a Panzer IV in the Winter German start set. Fantastic. And I've gone for the heavy anti-tank gun. I have magnetized it so I can take the howitzer on if I want to. Slightly ahistorical. There weren't many Panzer IVs that with the side skirts that had the howitzer, but at the end, there's always a variant somewhere where they stuck something on something because just because of battlefield recovery and whatnot. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. I will hold my hand up and say that the Panzer IV is an historical colour scheme. They tended to paint them in camouflage, but by the time the Panzer IV came around, the Panzer IV J, which this one is, I believe. So, but I like Panzer Grey, and I like a uniform-looking army. That's why I've done it, really. So there's that. So I went for the anti-tank gun on that because, in my experience, I like my infantry to fight infantry, and I like my tanks to fight tanks. I have tried taking towed anti-tank in the past or medium anti-tank in the past with my Japanese, and it's always let me down. I always feel like the enemy can get the drop on you, even without the ambush order and loads of crazy things. I always feel like the enemy can get the drop on you. They can get pins on you. An anti-tank gun just isn't the same as having a tank with a big gun on it. So that's why I was like, you know what? I want a mobile vehicle that can drive around. It can fight enemy vehicles. And because it's German, it's got 2 MMGs in it, 2 good MMGs. Hitler's Buzzsaw kicking in again. So if it needs to do the anti-infantry role, it can do it pretty well. It can do it pretty well. So that was the thinking behind the Panzer IV. I'm not going to pay for the side skirts every game. If I have the points left over, I'll do it just for rule of cool. But I put the side skirts on because I like the look of them, not necessarily because I like the rules for them. The rules are okay, but they're not, whatever. So that was the Panzer IV. I think it's a really just solid. It's like the Lehman. It's kind of like the Lehman battle tank for Guard with battle cannon. It's never going to be the best vehicle, but it's never going to be the worst vehicle. You can put a Panzer IV with a big gun and with a heavy anti-tank gun into any list, and it's always going to be doing something. It's always going to be able to contribute to the game. It's just going to be having a good time. So that's why I went for that model of Panzer IV rather than putting a howitzer on it. And then it comes down to the infantry. So you can see the first test rifleman. That was just a test model, but I thought I'd include it in here so you guys can see my thought process. Changed the basing up when it came to the other ones. Now, what I painted this week is I wanted to paint some of the special weapons. I thought I'll get all the special weapons done first, and then I can just go into sort of assembly line zombie mode when it comes to paying all the riflemen and just try and get all the riflemen done in one big batch kind of thing. So it took me a bit longer to do the infantry than I think it's going to overall, because I was learning the colour scheme. I was figuring things out. But I've done pretty much all the variation of the colour scheme that I need to do now. And I think I'll be able, and I've worked out, green for this, brown for that, grey for this, black for that. And so I figured out what I'm doing with the colour scheme now. But even so, even with the Opel Blitz and the Panzer IV and the working out the colour scheme and doing the test rifleman, even with all that, I was still able to get 10 infantry done. And it took me basically like one evening. I'd say it took me 1.5 evenings to do 5 guys. It took me 3 evenings to do these 10 blokes, basically. And I did the first 5 with SMGs. Now, again, going into a bit of detail for my bolt action bros out there, I know with Germans, it's like, why would you take SMGs when you've got access to the STG-44? It's like a 2-point upgrade over the SMG, and it's just like better in every way. It's like a no-brainer. 2 things. Firstly, I wanted to build my models with flexibility, so I popped 5 SMGs in there if I ever wanted to play early war, and I end up getting a different tank to the Panzer IV. I've got some SMGs in there. For anything that I want to play, like 1944, 1943, pre-1944, 1943, I've got the SMGs to use as my assault blokes. And I also like the fact that I actually had 2 test games with my Germans. Both of them, I had an SMG. I had an assault squad that had like a couple of SDGs, and the rest were all SMGs. And it was really good. I didn't notice difference because they were an assault squad. They were getting up close and personal, hosing people down. They were jumping out of the truck. They were like always in point blank, or nearly always in point blank. So it really didn't matter. And it would have been almost a waste of points to have those STGs. It would have been a waste of 10 points. So generally speaking, yeah, STGs are the way. There's a reason I've got double the amount of STG 44s than I have got MP40s in my list overall. But I do like to have a few SMGs to save a few points and to also give me flexibility if I ever want to play earlier war. So there we go. And then last but not least, I want to talk about the Dhaka Brigade, which is the 5 guys with light machine guns. Specifically, I've gone for the MG34. All of my light machine guns are MG34 because I figured all my medium machine guns are MG42. So I thought, you know what? 2 reasons I went for the MG34. Firstly, it looked better in this kit. In the Winter German kit, the MG34 is, as you can see, being like aimed or being fired from the hip. The MG42, they're all slung. And I was like, I don't want all my MGs running. It's like the plasma guy in the Scion box of 40k. Every single Scion guy is holding his plasma gun at a jaunty angle. It's like, no, I want some guys to be aiming. So I thought, you know what, I don't want my machine gun guys running around, not aiming their machine guns, not firing the machine guns. So I was like, you know what, let's make all these guys look like Animal Mother. Let's have my machine gun guys running forward, blazing away. It'll look cool. It'll look Hollywood. So that's what I did. So that's one reason I preferred the look. Second reason is, again, list flexibility. I've kind of built this army and I've tried to make it kind of generic looking so that I could use it as not necessarily just Germans. I might actually want to, for one battle report or one battle, try out using, Bulgarians, or try out using Hungarians or something. And I figured that at the end of the day, and I know this is going to really make some historical people's eyes twitch, so I apologise for that, but I figured at the end of the day, a dude in a greatcoat with a bolt-action rifle from a distance can be pretty much any of the Axis armies on the Eastern Front. Pretty much. And especially we're not the Italian, not necessarily the Italians, but they could definitely be the Hungarians or the Bulgarians. I know the Romanians were a bit more distinctive looking. So there's definitely that. And then I also figured, well, MG34s, if the Germans, the Germans did sell and sort of give out lots of late, sort of not obsolete but second line equipment. I know the MG34 was used a lot even to the end of the war, but they did give out a lot of second line equipment to essentially second line factions, like minor factions. So like, if the Hungarians were like, oh, we need help rearming our forces, we kind of got a bit beans after Stalingrad, the Germans would be like, oh, just take this box of 34s, we're building MG42s anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I figured it's a good, you could easily say this is an army of, Hungarians who have basically, they've got their bolt action rifles and they've just been given a load of, older LMGs by the Germans. That's my thinking. I'm sure historically that's going to really rage some people, but that's what I just thought. And I figured it means if I ever want to playtest it for a battle or something, I don't need to go out and buy a whole new army. I've just got my generic Western Axis sort of army. And that's kind of what I decided to go for. So there we go. And obviously, in terms of sort of tactically, why have I built so many LMGs? Well, if you go in German, you want to take lots of machine guns because whilst, yes, they are expensive, it's 20 points for an LMG in an infantry squad. Whilst they are expensive, you do want to take as maximum advantage of that Hitler's Buzzsaw rule because as someone who's been on the receiving end of Hitler's Buzzsaw, you wouldn't think that an extra shot per unit would be a big deal, but over the course of the game, it's massive. If you take like 10 MGs, like a couple on your Panzer IV, an MG team, and a few in your infantry squads, and you end up with like 8 or 9 MGs across the army, between your armoured cars and all this kind of stuff. It's like having an extra squad's worth of firepower. It's pretty big. I definitely would say I'm a big fan of taking a lot of MGs with the Germans in bolt action. And in my practice game, taking a lot of MGs really helped me. I found it made a big difference, and I was able to win the firefight. And if you guys have been follow my Imperial Guard, you guys know that I love to win the firefight. It's my whole jam, baby. So there we go. Big old Mordian Mondays, big old bolt action sort of day. Big old, week and all that kind of stuff. But I've had an absolutely fantastic time with bolt action recently. I must have played 10 games over the last 4 weeks. It must have been more than 2 games a week, and I've been loving every minute of it. And it's just very refreshing. But I'm starting to feel the honeymoon phase sort of wearing off a little bit. I'm starting to get that itch with my Imperial Guard again. I had a practice game and won against Dark Elder this weekend, which was pretty big. I'm pretty happy with that. And it was in practice for a tournament that I've got at the end of this month. Obviously, I'll be doing a video on that event. It's a team tournament. I was using you guys well know, my well distilled Cadian army, and I'll be doing a bit of a sort of. I've got another practice game with it tonight against Tyranids. It's probably going to be against Leviathan Tyranids, or it might be against Kraken Genestealer Spam. We'll have to see. But I've got another practice game, so I'm definitely feeling the itch of the 40k of the Imperial Guard again. So I know some of you will be worried. Is Morning Glory Time going to become full time about action? I don't think so. I am very much enjoying about action, but I've always got that itch to paint some 40k. I've always got that itch to play lots of 40k. Just right now, I'm refreshing my palette on some lovely, refreshing bolt action. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, leave lots of comments down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys have been up to. Have you been tempted by bolt action? If anyone's got any questions, please put it down in the comment section below. Either I'll get back to you in the comment section, or if I get loads of bolt action related questions from people who are interested and are not sure about it, I'll round them all up and I'll do a video on it saying your bolt action questions answered. And it might be just a really good way for people thinking about getting into the game to jump in. A good place for them to start. Because I tell you one thing, you don't realise how spoiled you are for 40k content until you go outside of the 40k world. You Google, if you ever have a question about 40k, you Google it, someone else has asked and answered it. But action, there's none of that out there. It's a lot of the forums are years out of date, and you just have to learn it yourself. So I can definitely, if anyone's got any questions or whatnot about getting into the game, please put them down in the comments below. And like I said, I'll get back to you one way or another. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Thank you for watching. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.